So, the topic I wanted to take up today is a very interesting halacha. There's a lot of laws in the Torah that pertain to things that have not been in vogue for thousands of years because we didn't have a state. So, for example, warfare. Warfare is it's a significant part of the Torah. The Rambam in Hilchos, towards the end of the Mishnah Torah, he has the book of Shoftim, judges. It's another thing. We didn't really have judges. We still don't have Sanhedrin. We don't live according to a full Torah judicial system. Okay, maybe in a certain, if a Jew has a case against a fellow Jew, he's not allowed to take him to court.
Secular court. No.
Not allowed to. Arkos, and that's a serious, prohibition. It's a serious violation. He's supposed to go to Bezdin to show Kavod HaTorah, Din Torah, Kavod HaTorah. So he's supposed to go to Bezdin. There are circumstances, however, if the other guy refuses after, Hasmanos, you give him Hasmanos, summonses, and you have no other recourse, so then then you can go to a secular court, but it's not considered to be a positive thing. Okay, so we don't have that. But there are Batei Dinim though. Especially in Eretz Yisrael, I'm sure. Okay, as opposed to the secular. Even in Eretz Yisrael, they have secular courts too. Just because someone is Jewish doesn't mean he's not secular. He could be secular. And then there's also a section, the final section of the Rambam, deals with the subject of Hilchos Malachim, kings. Kings?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, king? Who's the king? We don't have kings anymore. There's still some kings in the world, I would say. The ruler of Jordan is king, or King Hussein, and now his son Abdullah, I think his name is. Okay, there are kings in the world, and monarchy. Some of it is figurehead, some of it is real. Like the king of Jordan is a real king. He's real, not a figurehead. But what is the ideal form of government according to the Torah? It seems anyways, that the ideal form of government according to the Torah is not democracy, as we know it. As now, monarchy, but it's not just monarchy. I wouldn't just say monarchy. I might use the term constitutional monarchy. In other words, the king just can't come in and do whatever he wants.
Thailand, what do they call that government?
Where?
Thailand.
I don't know.
There's a king there.
Yeah, okay. I don't know, but constitutional monarchy means that he's not an absolute ruler. He had, throughout history, most of the rulers were kings, and they believed in the divine right of kings. They thought basically they could do whatever they want. They didn't have to answer to anyone. Then you have what's called constitutional monarchy, and that is the kings of England. King George, not the contemporary. Today it's just a figurehead. But yesterday was Independence Day, July 4th. Many of us, not all of us, are American, but it was something. It was something to celebrate. I think that we should celebrate. I feel very positively about America, being a citizen of America, because Rabbi Moshe Feinstein said that it's a Medina Shel Chesed.
Right.
So, everybody has complaints about any government that you live in, but there is a matter of Hakaras HaTov. There's a very important matter of Hakaras HaTov. So, I don't know that everybody here has been in America, but you've been in if the country that you lived in is good to the Jews, okay, that's a big inyan. In most countries that the Jews were in throughout history were not good to the Jews, okay? So America, by and large, was good to the Jews. All right, it's got some problems now. There's certain expressions of anti-Semitism, but the government is not anti-Semitic. And on the whole, I would tell my Talmidim in America to fly the flag on July 4th and other American things, to fly the flag. It's very important that Jews should not just be loyal and have Hakaras HaTov, but to demonstrate it. The Goyim shouldn't come by, how come these Jews don't fly a flag? You know what I'm saying? Not just for the Goyim, simply because it's the right thing to do. So I'm just mentioning, not to mention all the benefits. See, as Jews, we're critical. We tend to look at all the shortcomings. So we're very critical. If the government, if they didn't do this, they didn't do this for Israel, then they're terrible, and so on and so forth. But that's not the perspective. You have to look at the good. On the whole, America has been very good for Israel. I don't think anybody could possibly argue with that. Okay, on every possible level. Who would have ever thought that? You told us so 100 years ago. You told them there's going to be 100 years ago. You tell a Jew there's going to be a Jewish state, and it's going to actually have an army, and it's going to be able to defend itself. And not only that, but it's going to be the closest ally to the world superpower. So you'd say, Meshuggah. Right? You're crazy. Okay, but the point of the matter is, maybe he's crazy, but it's true. It's true. That's unbelievable nisim v'niflos. Again, it's very important because we look at the downside of
It
Israel.
goes all the way back to George Washington when he recognized the Jews in America.
Yeah, George Washington.
Put a plaque in the
did you know?
synagogue in.
I read something amazing, and I'll share this with you now. Agav while we're on the topic. Yeah, I read something amazing. That when he was inaugurated as the president, so, he takes the oath of office. And the oath of office in America, the guy's supposed to...
On a Bible.
On a Bible. Right? That's already something. They still do. They still like Supreme Court and so on and so forth. So usually, I guess it's
I don't think Obama had used the Bible.
So you did it on the court?
Correct? Is that true? I don't know. It could be.
Huh?
Okay, I don't know for... That I don't know for a fact. But... Generally, I think they would use what they could the Bible, which has what they call the old
King James.
And then the so-called New Testament. When Washington was sworn in, the first president, he wanted the Bible to be turned to a specific page, to a specific area. What would you think? What would you think he would want to? It was in. I'll tell you in a second. If any section. He would want to not just stamp the Bible with the closed book, but turn to a particular. He wanted a particular inyan. Anyone know it's hard? I wouldn't have figured it out myself. I'm just trying to, get you going. I wouldn't have figured it out. I'm not trying to be a big shot here. It was this. Give you a hint. It was in Bereshis.
Bereshis 12.
What?
Bereshis 12.
What's the subject?
It says, blessed is the blessed, and all cursed is the
That's a nice guess. But it happens not to be true. It was towards the end of Bereshis in the story of Yosef ve'echav, Yosef and his brothers. What does it have to do? What does it have to do with George Washington becoming the first president? It'll give you an insight into the man. I hold he's one of the great presidents. He's generally regarded as such. But he wanted it. What he was struck by was when Yosef and the brothers. When they came back from burying Yaakov, and they came back, and the brothers were afraid that now that Yaakov is gone, they have no protectia. They have no protection.
From
and
Joseph.
Now, what?
From Joseph.
From Joseph. Then maybe now Yosef will want to take revenge. It's an amazing thing after all those years, because this is already 17 years that the brothers had encountered Yosef.
And they were projecting.
Could be, and Yosef had forgiven them, and he told them, you have to relocate, you have to go back and I'll take care of you, because I can't take care of you if you're not here. The famine was in its strongest, and he had them all come down, and Yaakov, and he took care of them. He took care of them for 17 years. So I wouldn't have suspected anything, but that's the way. See, that's what that kind of thing. That's what this kind of hatred engenders certain suspicions, and sometimes you can't get over them. Because you can't imagine. See, because I think, aside from projection, I'm not sure about projection. I think that the brothers couldn't believe that he would, because what they did to him was really, really bad. When you look at the story, the Torah sort of doesn't. He was pleading with them to take him and put him in a pit and leave him there. Then they took him out and they sold him as a slave. 17 years old. 17 years old, he's cut off from his family, he's cut off from his father, and he's sold as a slave in Mitzrayim. What kind of chance did he have?
Only one brother wanted to do that.
What kind of life would he have? Okay, so I think that when you do something very, very terrible to someone, this is an important Mussar Haskel. When you do something very, very terrible to someone, and then you feel guilty, you want to make up, you want to apologize to the person, this and that. And even if he says, okay, I forgive you, but sometimes you can't believe that he could forgive me. Because you couldn't forgive. In other words, if I was in that position, I wouldn't forgive it. So certain things are kind of like not forgivable. They are forgivable, but you are afraid that he still harbors a grudge against you. And that's why it can destroy. This type of sin, it can destroy relationships, even though superficially we apologize, and even though, Jews go around that before Yom Kippur, everybody's Michael everybody, but what is it, it doesn't have any real content, it doesn't have any real depth to it, so they were afraid. They thought maybe, but they knew they had they had an ace, they had a protection. Protection was Yaakov Avinu. They knew that Yaakov had such respect, that Yosef had such respect for Yaakov, that he could never do anything to them. In fact, you know what Rashi says? It says they saw in their brother's face that Yaakov had died. They saw in their brother's face that Yaakov had died. So Rashi says, what kind of pasuk is that? What do you mean they saw? They saw his behavioral change. At Taka, he had a behavioral change when Yaakov died. Why? Rashi says, because as long as Yaakov was alive, he would bring them over, he'd be makari of them, and they'd have meals together. The family would have meals together. Okay, I guess they had barbecues, who knows? I don't know what they had, you see? Then, when Yaakov died, he stopped inviting them. Oh, you see? So if you're sitting there, if you're a little bit paranoid, if you're a little bit paranoid about something, then any little sign, you'll interpret, see? I know why. He didn't do it. He didn't do it because he was going to get even with them. It's interesting. Apparently, while we're on the topic, see, the thing is like this. When Yosef apologized to them, and this is a very, very shaykh question. I'm sure we all have these questions. Let's say you have, I assume in everybody's friends or family, you have some kind of divisions, machloikesin, which you should stay away from machloikis, but they happen. So let's say somebody sinned against you. A friend, let's say it was a friend. Did anybody ever have a friend that turned against you at some point? Or insulted you or something like that? Something that, it broke up the relationship, the friendship. Okay, so now time passes, okay? Time goes by. And the other guy has hirhurei tshuva. He wants to do tshuva. Now, ben adam lachavero is different than ben adam lamakom. If your sin is just between you and God, so you do vidui, okay, you do tshuva b'fnei Hashem. You don't have to go in front of anybody else. It's between you and God. That's why I think it's easier. But if you sinned against your fellow man, and now you want to do tshuva, you can't just do tshuva between you and... First you have to deal with the person. You have to secure his mechila. You have to secure his... Not enough to just apologize. You can apologize and he doesn't want to accept it. So what do you do if he doesn't want to accept it? You got to... there's a whole procedure. Until finally, if you've exhausted everything, and after you bring friends, they go a second time and a third time, and he's just adamant, will not forgive you, then leave him alone, then he becomes a sinner. See, because a Jew has to forgive. I want everybody to know that. A guy is an achzar. Is a cruel. They won't forgive. It says so in Tanakh. That the Givonim refused. They refused to forgive the sin with the no v'ir hakohanim and so on, what Shaul did, and David tried to get them. They wouldn't forgive. See, that's what the Rambam says. That's Goyish equality. A Jewish quality. I said there's a difference between a Jew and a guy. It's very, very important. Each person has to realize. We can't behave like a guy. Jews are Rachmanim. They're merciful. Baishanim, modest. They're very modest. V'gomlei chasadim. And they do gemilas chasadim. So if I've encountered some Jews that wow, so cruel. Such a cruelty, such an inability. Included in Rachmanim is the ability to forgive. If you can't forgive, then I don't know if you're Jewish. I'm serious. I've met certain people that I can't believe you're Jewish. Such a cruelty. That's not Jewish. Okay, I understand. We're not perfect. Okay, fine. But after all is said and done, you have a heart. You can forgive. And in certain cases, I did find out that those people, that's questionable. Their whole, because there are a lot of conversions in America. There's a lot of conversions in the world today that are not 100%. You know that. They're done by conservative, they're done by reform. I don't even know, it could even be Orthodox, but not everybody that says he's a Jew is a real Jew. That's why you have a lot of organizations in America, Jews that are against Israel. It's a crazy thing. Right? They're anti-Zionist and so on. You know, I'm not going to name names. But a lot of those Jews, that I wouldn't say that halachically, I don't know how Jewish they are. Because there's been such intermarriage and there's been such conversion. Hisbollah is called in assimilation. Anyways, the question is like this. So if somebody wants to make up with you, I don't know if you ever had that experience. If somebody wants to make up with you because he really wronged you, insulted you, mistreated you, okay? And he comes to you, and you still feel, you don't feel good about it. So what are you supposed to do? First of all, what are you supposed to do? This is very important in the 3 weeks in Tisha B'Av, because Sinas Chinam, Sinas Chinam was the cause of the destruction of the second Beis HaMikdash. And it hasn't been rebuilt yet. So if it hasn't been rebuilt yet, so probably this, right, the hate, the sins are still linger. We haven't learned, because it's the hardest thing in the world. The hardest thing in the world is to forgive. Not to apologize is very hard too, but if it's a choice, which would you say is more difficult to do? To apologize to someone you've offended, or to forgive someone who's offended you? Which is more difficult?
Forgive.
Forgive, if you think about it. It's very, very, because you can't let go. To forgive means I let go of my claim.
So let's get back to George Washington now.
All right, I'll get back. I just wanted to get this point out. I'll get back to George Washington. But it's right in the thing here. So I just want to finish this point. The question with Yosef and his brothers, that's where he comes in.
Right.
George Washington. The question was with Yosef and his brothers, was he mechuyev, once he forgave them, was he mechuyev to now become friends again like it was in the past? To just hang out with them and have them over and all that. Is it enough to say, I forgive you? I forgive you. I don't hold it against you. But does that mean I have to go back to the way we were? The way we were? Do I have to do that? Or no, I don't have to go back to the way we were. I'm not angry with you. I have nothing against you, but that's it. See, Yosef apparently did not go back to the way it was. That's it. That was torn apart. Because he lived in Mitzrayim. His whole life was without his family. He left when he was 17. And when the brothers made up with him, it was too late. It was too late to create that friendship. Too late. Yosef had his own people, etc. Yaakov was there. As long as Yaakov was there, he got together with the family. Once Yaakov was not there anymore, it wasn't hostility. It wasn't that he hated them. It's just
the way it was never good.
The way it was, yeah, it was never good. It was never good.
Not a basis of anything good.
So therefore, you're mechuyev to forgive. Whether or not you have to become the guy's friend and go on trips with him and hang out, no, you have a right. That's one way you could choose. You could choose your friends. Okay, you can't choose your family, but you could choose your friends. So if because of various things happened, I don't want to be friends with this guy, hang out with this guy, okay, I don't have to. I'm mechuyev to. Now to get back to George Washington, what did Yosef say? When the brothers came to him the second time, the tzveitamo, and they hinenu l'chol avadim, will be slaves, servants unto so on and so forth. And what did he say? Said Yosef, Hasachas Elokimoni? Am I in the place of God? You're accusing me of wanting to take revenge? That's not my job. That's Hashem's job. It's not my job to go around and to see that you get what you deserve and you get what you deserve and this guy gets Hasachas Elokimoni. I'm not in the place of God. Okay, and therefore I have no interest. I have no desire. Okay, besides you thought to do me bad. Hashem chashav l'tova. Everything you tried to do to me did not happen, and Hashem is in control of the world. So I'm fine. I'm perfectly fine with the thing. I don't have any grudges. I don't stay up at night trying to relive the whole thing. So George Washington said, that's where I want to, I'm not in the place of God. I'm not in the place of God. I'm just the president of the United States. I'm a human being. I have limited ability. Ultimately, it's Hashem that runs the world. So that's an amazing thing about
You also put this, was that too cold for you?
Yeah, it's because it's right on my head. It's just, you don't have to shut it off, just to push it. Just to push it, it's a little bit off. It's blowing my mash on my head. Yeah. Okay, that's better.
You also put this plaque up in the synagogue in Newport, Rhode Island, attesting to that America was always going to be supportive of the Hebrew congregation of America at that time.
Yeah, 100%. No, it seems that he was very respectful of the Jews and so on and so forth. But this is beyond this is not because he likes Jews or anything. This is because he liked the idea that he understood. He was an anav. He had humility. He recognized his place, and he didn't want. It's like we're not trying to. They didn't want to duplicate to have a king like they have a king in England. And then he becomes like more than a human being, and he takes the place of God. You see. So I thought that was very interesting.
Up until Trump, he was the richest president of all the presidents of the world in America, and Trump became the richest.
Okay, that could be. Sorry.
Back to your beginning question.
Right.
The best way in Torah, how to govern the Klal Israel.
Right.
So I had somebody teaching that it says, look the time of the judges. That was a long time. Where was a king? There was no king. So how they have been governed? And I got an answer on that. It was more like on the tribes they covered.
That's true.
And that was a long time. It looks like Chabad has a similar structure. There's no president, no Rosh Yeshiva, and it's running.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good question because they had big problems in the times of the judges. They had big problems. It kept repeating itself. Ish kala yasha b'yenav yasa. Each person did what was good in his own yasha b'yenav, what was good in his own sight. And the nation did fall into avodah zarah. Right, and then God would send enemies against them, right? And then, see, what they lacked then was unity. Mm-hmm. Each tribe was like an entity into itself. So that's a very difficult issue because you have to have tribes. Hashem set up the structure of tribes, but then what about unity? You have to be able to come together. So ultimately, the shoftim that wasn't perfect, and the people themselves came forward and to Shmuel, right, to appoint a king over us. The truth of the matter is the kingship, by and large, didn't work out well either. I mean, both of the MIDRASH. I mean, the Beis HaMikdash, there are some great triumphs. You had David HaMelech, and you had great kings, and you had the building of the Beis HaMikdash. But then you had people like Revuen ben Avad, and then you had Achav. It led the nation into avodah zarah. You see. So I'll tell you what the problem with the king is. The problem with the king is as follows. If it's David HaMelech, it's great. If it's David HaMelech, it depends. You're giving a tremendous amount of power. The Torah gives him a tremendous amount of power. You're placing it in one guy's hands. That's why there's a mitzvah associated with it. What's the special mitzvah that applies to the kohen? He has to write a separate, special Sefer Torah. He has to have a Sefer Torah that he carries with him wherever he goes. And he has to constantly be immersed in reading of Torah, unless he's involved in war. I mean, his function is to protect the nation, to engage in war. Okay, but even when he goes to war, he takes the Torah with him.
That's what brought the unity.
Yeah, lo yamush sefer haTorah hazeh. Do not once the king separates from the Sefer Torah, you're going to have troubles, because if it becomes for the glory of the king, and the nation is simply a means to an end, then you can have all kinds of problems. And that's what happened ultimately. So that's the conflict. The conflict is what is better. Is it better to have a democracy? Democracy has its flaws. It has its problems. In terms of everything becomes politics. And everything is done in order to become popular. You can't do that which is righteous because you want to be popular.
So every time we have a war here, that brings everybody together. So
you have to have wars, okay. Every so often you have to have wars. But no, that's the problem. The king should unify the country, but it's not the king, see, it's the Torah. The country is not going to be unified unless there's an ideal to strive. You got to get people an ideal. That's why when there's tremendous prosperity, what's happening to America? When there's tremendous prosperity and materialism, there's no idealism. That's when things begin to fall apart. You see, the true king, because ultimately you're going to have a king. If you like the system now, what's so great about the system now with the Knesset and the wheeling and the dealing, it's terrible. But eventually, in Yemos HaMashiach, it's going to be Melech HaMashiach. The Mashiach is going to be a king. He's going to restore the David, Malchus-based David. He's going to restore it. And guess what? He is going to coerce. He's going to see to it that everybody keeps the Torah. I don't think he's going to do it with a gun to your head because that's kind of meaningless. But he's going to be, Melech Mashiach, the Rambam says, is going to be such a gadol. You can see everything. We're living in Messianic times. There's no question. You can see all the requirements are falling into place.
Trump also believed that he
was Mashiach.
That Hashem was above him. No, he was.
What did he say? That he wasn't known for his humbleness, Trump. I mean, it's okay. I like him. I'm not complaining. But personality was like, ego. No question about it.
He mentioned Hashem many times in his.
No. I'll tell you, he's definitely not stupid. He had great accomplishments. Maybe he'll be back. But you see, the thing is like this. You have to understand. Why did he do all those things for Israel that no president ever did? Far and away, there's no comparison.
Besides the fact that is
not for the Jews. I was on a phone conversation with Trump. I'm not bragging. It's the Rabbi, Rabbinical Council of America. So they arrange, when Obama was president also, before Yom Kippur, the president agrees to have a conversation with the leading rabbis, whatever it is. Okay? So the same thing with Trump. Trump had the least amount of rabbis. It was possibly, because so many of those rabbis are liberal guys, and they don't want to be. But of course, I was on the phone call. Trump was on the phone call like Trump. It's the same thing. What you see is what you get. And he complained about the Jews. He complained. Because one of the rabbis, Rabbi Heyer, you've heard of Rabbi Heyer, okay? Very prominent, L.A., the Holocaust Center in L.A. Weisenthal, correct. So he had very nice things when his turn came to speak. I didn't have a chance. You couldn't ever, the representatives. Oh, he thanked him for all of the things and that. He's, Mr. President, how can we help you? This is what, this is right before the election. How can we help you? So Trump said, to be honest, you can vote for me. And he starts saying, my daughter is Jewish, my son-in-law, my grandchildren. He starts naming all the things that he did for Jews and for Israel, etc. Like he's really upset. And the Jews don't vote for him. 25%, 75% voted for the other guy. So why did Trump do it though? Did Trump do all the things for Israel because he's a tzaddik? No. He did it for political reasons too. He did it because the real Zionists today are the evangelicals. The real Zionists that are not ashamed. They schämen sich nicht.
Yeah.
They're out in the front. Israel, because it says in the Bible, and they believe what says in the Bible. They are the ones. Now, they have a very strong base. That's the biggest base in the Republican Party is the Christian evangelicals. He needed them. I'm not saying he wouldn't have done it for the Jews. I think he's a straight guy. I think he likes the Jews. His father was a big Ohev Yisrael. But from a political point of view, it was more to get the Christian evangelicals, and they supported him. And the Jews, of course, are a disappointment. That's something we have to live with. The Jews are a disappointment that they have a guy who's the most pro-Jewish, the most pro-Israel president. And
he said in one of the speeches recently that the Jews of America don't like Israel.
You're getting that too. A lot of the Jews are assimilated Jews, and some of them it's even questionable. It's even questionable how Jewish they are. Because once you start with these bogus conversions, you're not dealing with real Jews anymore. I mean, it's not halachically valid. So
Trump also opposed the Obama realignment, giving power to Iran.
Yeah.
Who did?
Trump.
Yeah, Trump. No, he didn't. I'm saying
very big issue.
you couldn't have gotten a better president for Israel. You couldn't have gotten a better. I don't know.
But also for the world.
If Israel were to pick a president, they'd pick it couldn't have been better than him. Everybody was surprised. I knew he'd be good and all that. I didn't realize he'd be that good. But that's not because of the Jewish voters or even Jewish money. That's because of the too many Jews. I remember, the synagogue in Pittsburgh
Oh,
that was attacked, shot.
right.
What was it called again? I forgot.
Tree of life.
Tree of Life, right. Tree of Life. So, I don't know how many, 7, 10 Jews were shot. So Trump and Melania, they wanted to go there to be Menachem Ovo. That's a big coven, like to go with the president. So they had this bogus Jewish organization, I forget what they're called, and they protested, "You're not welcome here. You're not welcome here." What? I can't believe it. What are you, crazy? That's a Chilul Hashem. Covered, not to show cover to the Melech, to the president. And not just them. When he's coming to be Menachem Ovo the Jews, and you're protesting, you're not welcome here. Wow. Why do you call yourself Jewish? Don't call yourself something else.
They also didn't want the murderer to receive the death penalty.
Which one?
The congregation.
Oh, okay, yeah, all right, fine. So that's stam craziness. But to do something which is mafaza, you're mavayesh, you embarrass a president. How can it? That's what we've come to. That's what we've come to.
These are the un-Jews.
Yeah. I agree with that whole thing. It's really.
So I knew him in New York because I come from New York. I knew him very well in New York.
You knew him personally, or just?
Yeah, personally.
Oh wow, we have a connection with him. Interesting.
In fact, when I voted for him, he sent me a message on, thank you for voting for me.
How do you know you voted
So
for
that's
me?
what I said. I told him, how do you know I voted for you? So he just laughed. He said, I know you voted for me.
So you have a personal friendship. Very nice.
What about the Rambam? And you started to speak about Halachot Malachim?
Yes. Hilchot Malachim. Right. So, getting back to that, it turns out that when you go to fight a war, I just wanted to mention that the Melech HaMashiach is going to be on the level of a David HaMelech. He's going to be a great Talmud Chacham and teacher. He's going to Karav Moshe Rabbeinu, close to Moshe Rabbeinu, and he's going to educate the whole world to Torah, educate the Jews, and subsequently the entire world. That's why it's going to usher in the Messianic era. Now, what I wanted to get at was with regard to war, okay? And that is, there's different kinds of wars that the Jewish king has to fight, okay? Some of those wars we don't have today, some we do have today. For example, there's what's called Milchemes Mitzvah. Milchemes Mitzvah means it's a mitzvah to fight. You have to fight. It's an obligatory war, okay? That includes two kinds of war which are not in effect today. For example, the war to conquer the land of Israel, to wipe out the 7 nations. The 7 nations that lived in the land of Israel, that was a Milchemes Mitzvah. Okay. Also, any other Shaul. Shaul fought the war against Amalek. The war against Amalek is Milchemes Mitzvah. It's not an optional war. And we don't have that anymore. We don't, because that law applied specifically to the nation of Amalek, was an actual nation, and they came out to attack the Jews when they left Egypt, okay, and subsequently they dwelled within the land of Israel, and that was the war that he fought. There's no remnant of those people anymore. There's no remnant. But there is a concept of Amalek. Rabbi Soloveitchik, I think I might have mentioned it, that anyone that's stands up to eradicate the Jews just because they're Jews, like Hitler, that's Amalek. That's Amalek. Okay? So, the other types of, and a war of self-defense, that's a Milchemes Mitzvah. When the Jews are attacked by the Goyim, it's a mitzvah to fight back. So that applies even B'zman Hazeh. It would appear that applies even B'zman Hazeh. Okay? Like, I don't know, the 6 Day War, like the Yom Kippur War for sure. Okay? And all the wars against the enemies that Israel fights. Because Israel doesn't fight optional wars today. They have enough with mandatory self-defense. It's all self-defense. So if they bomb Iran, that's a Milchemes Mitzvah, because Iran is planning to kill them. Now, there's a very interesting procedure that they used when they went out to war. And I don't know of any nation that uses that procedure. Let's study that. Okay, I'll read to you the Rambam. And he says, Ein osin milchama im adam ba'olam. You can't make war with anybody in the world until they call out to be. They have an overture of peace. It's a very fascinating topic. Okay, with many dimensions. I don't think we'll be able to finish it today. Okay, we'll just get started. Okay, echem milchemes rishus, v'yechem milchemes mitzvah. Both kinds of war, no matter what kind of war it is, when you first go out, you have to offer them peace. Okay? And it says, Kisikra el ir, when you come close to a city, lilachem oleh, v'karosa eleh l'shalom. You have to call out for peace. Imishlimu, if they make peace, v'kiblu sheva mitzvahs, shenitzavu b'nei noach la'sosan. Alein. Peace does not just mean peace, as we know it. Peace means they have to accept upon themselves to become Noachites, B'nai Noach. That means they give up whatever religion they have now, okay, or if they're atheists, they give that up. They accept the 7 Noachite laws. That's a very, very important concept. They have to accept that. And Ein Horgim Mehem L'Shav. If they accept that, they also have to accept Mas, certain subordination, certain taxes, and they have to be subordinate to the Jewish state, okay? And they have to give up Avodah Zarah, and they have to accept the 7 Noachide laws, okay? V'arehem lamas. They are, as a tax, okay? Kibel, and the Rambam says, Kibel lehem hamas, lo kiblu ha'abdus. So there's 2 parts. If they accepted the tax but not the subservience, or they accepted the subservience and not the... We don't accept them until they have to accept both. Okay? Once they accept that, it's sort of like an inferior position. They can't be like in the Knesset. Okay? They can't be the chief of staff of the army. They're, a subservient position. Okay? Now, so, give me a second here. Then he says that the king can make all different kinds of arrangements in terms of what he wants them to be responsible for, and so on and so forth. Okay. Then the thing is like this. So what happened? For example, let me ask this question. What about by Amalek? Did they have to offer Amalek shalom? Because the Torah commands us to wipe out.
No.
To completely obliterate Amalek. Okay? So, he doesn't say so explicitly. See, because what I'm getting at is that there are certain countries, Ammon and Moab, for example, that you're lo sidrosh shlomam v'tovasam. Okay? That's what I wanted to take up. Ammon and Moab were treated in a very interesting way. If you go out to war against them, then you can't give them an overture of peace. The question is, why not? Okay? Why not? And it might be possible you can make a case from the Rambam that Amalek you do give peace. Okay? Okay, so that's what I find very interesting. He says that if you go to Devarim, it says, Lo yovo Ammoni u'Moavi b'kal Hashem. That someone from Ammon and someone from Moab cannot come in the Kahal Hashem. In other words, if they should convert, they can't marry. There are certain people you're not allowed to marry, like a mamzer, you're not allowed to marry. He's Jewish, okay? So there are certain nations, Ammon and Moab, for example. Ruth was from Moab, but she was a Moabiyah. Not the women, just the men. Just the men. Gamdo, even the 10th generation. In other words, if one of the Ammon and Moab, one of these people converts to Judaism, a legitimate conversion, they can convert, they can be Jewish, but they can't marry into the Kahal. Okay, so it's not good in terms of shidduchim. You're not going to have a good situation. Why not? Why not? So it says, Al Davar. What about the Mitzrim? What about the Egyptians? Third generation. So you're more lenient with the Egyptians. The Egyptians can't enter into the Kahal after 3 generations. Why? And the others can't. Period. Because the Egyptians showed their toes to us. Even though they did harm to us, but they brought us in, they let us come in the country in the midst of the famine, and we survived because of the kindness of the Egyptians. So because of that, we have to be makir tov. That's what I said before. You have to have a hakaras hatov. For any, the Rambam says, for any good that someone does for you, this is not going to be a pleasant halacha to learn. Hakaras hatov is a big inyan. If somebody showed some kindness to you, you have to be makir tov.
It wasn't really the Egyptians that showed the kindness to the Jews. It was because Joseph was in a position to take care of it.
That's correct. But still, you have to give them the credit. That you have to listen to Yosef. Yosef didn't have the complete power to decide it. For example,
He
Yosef
had complete power. The king gave him the
no, but that was
Pharaoh gave him the complete power.
he gave them the complete power to deal with the Egyptians, to work out the food with these were strangers. These were foreigners. That was a big inyan to bring down the whole 70 souls, to bring down the whole family. At a time of famine, it's not going to be popular in any country. When your people are starving and you want to bring in a whole group of people, not just them, but their animals, the animals graze, and bring them in and they should have access to everything. Not so simple. Not so simple. Of course, if it wasn't for Yosef, they probably couldn't do it, but the permission was granted by Paro, hakaras hatov, to Egypt. So that's what he says. If somebody did a tov for you, you have a chiyuv hakaras hatov. Even if subsequently he did something wrong, doesn't matter. It doesn't obliterate. I mean, I'm sure we think that way. Okay, yeah, he was nice to me back then, but since that time, he's been mean to me, so I don't owe him a thing. No, the answer is you do owe him a thing. You owe him for the fact that he treated you nicely at one point. That, I guarantee you, everybody would think that way. Everybody, in his own personal cheshbon. When he deals with his lahismodei, when he deals with these kinds of things, and he has to decide, should I go to this event? This guy's being honored. Okay, why should? Oh, because he hasn't been mean. He's been mean to me lately. Yeah, but a few years ago, didn't he do that great favor for you? Yeah, he did. But since that time, doesn't matter. Since that time, you see, you incurred an obligation. Hakaras hatov is a big inyan, very big inyan. And that's what I'm just reminding you, you see. So that's what the Rambam says. So the Egyptians, we have a chiyuv, hakaras hatov. At one point in time, they were good to us. Oh, they were subsequently mean? True, but that does not alleviate, does not remove you from the chiyuv of hakaras hatov. That's how great the power of hakaras hatov. Okay? So now what's the reason for Ammon and Moab? My goodness. Ammon and Moab, they trace their lineage back to Lot, right? They're descendants of Lot. Okay, you know the incident when the daughters thought that they were the last ones in the world, and they got him drunk, and they had children from him. Okay, so here's the deal: Ammon and Moab cannot come, etc. Al davar asher lo kidmu eschem ba'alechem u'v'mayim. For the matter that they did not come out. Yeah. They didn't come out to you when you were in the desert, you were wandering, right? And you had to go through their land. They didn't come forth and greet you with bread and water. Okay? Vasher sachar alecha is Bilam ben Ba'or. Also, that's a reference to Moab. They hired Bilam, to curse them. Ram Naraim l'kal alecha, to curse you. Below Hashem elokecha l'shmo Bilam, but God did not want to listen to Bilam. Vayapoch Hashem elokecha and God turned over the klola into a bracha. Because God loves you. Lo sidro shlomam v'tovasam. You cannot search out their good. No, you can't be dorish tov. You can't. So for here, 1 second. Kol yamecha la'olam, forever. You can't. It's very, very strange. It's very, very strange. You can't greet them in peace. So if you're going out to war against them, you're not allowed to call forth in peace. Let me ask you a question, though. First of all, it seems that by Amalek you do. Because the Rambam says, Milchemes mitzvah, Milchemes rishus. Amalek is Milchemes mitzvah. There you do call forth in peace. It seems like Amalek is much. Okay, these guys were bad. They didn't come out to greet you with bread and water. You're comparing that to Amalek, who came out to destroy you? Right? They're being treated even worse? That's really strange. Let me ask you a question. Let's assume you're fighting these two nations, Ammon and Moab, and they made peace of their own. They knew about it, but you didn't call out to peace. But they came forth and they said, we're accepting the tax, we're accepting the Sheva Mitzvahs, we're doing whatever we have to do. they make peace of their own accord. Do we accept it? Do we accept it? See, there's a lot of stuff over here. A lot of
Is that a Moloch?
Not a Moloch, I'm on a Moab.
That's what there was the question yesterday to Rav Sprecher. I asked him how they had to go back and to kill all the women and even all the boys, the little boys. They only kept the little girls. So there's something so evil in the nature of these little boys that you have to kill the boy. So how you can accept peace then? That's maybe part of your answer.
Okay, give me a second. I saw it in the Rambam. Oh, here it is. See, he says at the end, after he talks about this halacha, that Ammon and Moab, we don't send forth letters or messengers to ask them if they want peace. We don't do that. Okay? Okay, he quotes the psukim, but he says v'yafal pi she'ein sholim b'shlamam, even though we don't inquire if they want peace, im hishlimu me'atzmam, if they make peace of their own accord, makablan osam, we accept them. So my question is, yeah, we accept them. So if they're subject, if you tell me they're not subject to peace, they can't do anything about it, we have to destroy them. Okay, I got it. But you tell me they are subject to peace. It's just that we can't extend peace to them. Well, why can't we extend peace to them? And why do we extend peace to Amalek? Did somebody raise their hand? I'm sorry. I thought somebody raised their hand. Okay, this is very interesting stuff. It's very, everything in the Torah is very precise.
Apropos of this parasha, you have the Midianites.
I'm sorry, the Midianites. Yeah.
There, nothing, as a result of what they did, there's no overture whatsoever. They just went there, destroyed, and even when they came back with the women. And God said, or Moshe
got angry, yeah. Kill them. Well, it's a good question. It's possible that they did have an overture for peace. It's possible. It doesn't have to be recorded. Not everything is recorded in the Torah Shabbat, in the written law. So I'm not sure. Okay, are the Midianites included in those people that you don't send forth? You don't send out to peace. See, the Ramban talks about this. The Ramban on the Chumash and the Devarim talks about this. Okay, what is the Torah saying? The Torah is saying that the failure to come out to greet you with bread and water is that's the worst thing in the world. My goodness, if every nation if that's all the Nazis ever did to us, they didn't give us bread and water. You don't think about that. That's the worst evil in the world. Okay, I think it has to do with what we've been talking about. Because the Ramban, no, it's not just anybody that fails to. Not everybody's mechuyev. They had a special chiyuv. Why? Because they go back to Lot. Lot has a chiyuv of hakaras hatov to Avram Avinu. Avram took him with him on the journey, and Lot when they split up. Lot became very wealthy because of Avram. They split up, and Lot went to Sodom and Amorah. And then Sodom and Amorah were conquered by the coalition of the four kings. And he would have been a captive who saved him? Avram Avinu. They had a debt for all they had benefited from Avram Avinu, materially, but spiritually too. Okay? So that's why that they failed to honor the debt that they had incurred. They should have viewed Bnei Yisrael as brothers. They should have viewed them as brothers due to the history of Bnei Yisrael. And that should have been expressed with bread and water, with hospitality, something. Instead, they were cold, you're not going to come through our land, and so on and so forth. So in doing that, let me quote to you the words of the Ramban that Al Derech, he said, Afal pi shehem b'nei mishpachtam, even though that these people are from the same family. The Avraham Avichem, and your father Avram, Ahav Avihem, loved their father Lot, Ka'ach, like he was a brother. Lotiu atem lo ka'acham. See, you can't greet them in peace because that's achva. That's a gesture of brotherhood. You see? And they're not entitled to that. Doshe shalom v'tova, that you want their peace and you want their good. Ki heim heiferu bris achva, because they destroyed the bris, the covenant of brotherhood. V'tia mufrash, they have to be separate. It's an interesting kind of a thing. In other words, they broke the bonds. It's not, if they accept, look, if they accept, they make shalom, if they accept these Sheva mitzvahs, and it's not, so we're not going to kill them, they're fine. But we're not going to go out of our way to extend friendship, because that's a gesture of brotherhood, okay? And it has to be, that's because I'm connecting it to Hakaras Hatov. Hakaras Hatov is very important, because if I do something good, if somebody does something good, you have to reciprocate. So you create a bond, you create a certain brotherhood, okay? And you strengthen the doing of good. If you don't even acknowledge it, if you don't recognize it, then you're breaking off. This is what we're saying. We're asserting that we're brothers. I care about you. I'm doing something for you. You have to accept that in return. If you just toss it away, so then forget about it. You're outside the covenant. I'm not going to do any gestures of good for you anymore. You see? You're on your own. It's a very, very important thing. You can't just accept certain things and not reciprocate. Not recognize that this is an expression of brotherhood, and ultimately we're all brothers. That's the whole point. Certainly, Klal Yisrael, we're all brothers to one another. You see, so that's why it's not that their hate. It's not that their hate is worse than Amalek. Okay, even Amalek can be accepted. Even Amalek, why? Why? I'll tell you why. Because once they make shalom, they're giving up. And they're becoming B'nai Noach. They're accepting Hashem. They're accepting the Torah. It's a form of gerus. It's not the complete gerus to be part of Klal Yisrael. But to become a Ben Noach is a form of conversion. They're converting themselves. Once they convert, we're not going to kill them. Then you're no longer an Amalekite. You're no longer an Amalekite. So even Amalek, we can say, and the same thing with Ammon and Moab. If the guy, I'm not going to send forth in peace, but if he accepts the peace himself, if he becomes a Ben Noach, I'm going to accept him. You see, but that kindness of treating him like a brother, he destroyed the bond of brotherhood. Once you destroy the bond of brotherhood, then all of those benefits, there are certain benefits that accrue from being brothers. There's certain unwritten rule, we care about each other. There are certain things we'll do for each other, okay? That's very, very important. It's very, very important. You see, I'm very sensitive to certain things. Like if you're walking down the street and there's something there, like an obstacle, or it's just something that should be in the garbage. Yeah. So I pick it out. It's wrong. It's wrong. I have a chiyuv. I'm part of this whole entity. Mm-hmm. If it wasn't for this whole entity, then I wouldn't have my rights and my protection and my security. So I have a chiyuv to the entity. Nobody knows. Nobody sees. You see, nobody sees. But that doesn't matter. You care. If you see some broken glass in the street, well, what do I care? What do you mean, what do you care? Somebody's going to get a flat tire. What do I? No. You care. It's you. It's your brother. You want your brother to get a flat tire? So you're in a position where you could remove a harm, a nezek. It's a big chiyuv to do it. Big mitzvah. It looks like a small thing. It's not a small thing. It's a huge thing. And nobody sees you. You're not going to get any credit. Except HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Except HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You see? That's the one that's going to see you. Those are the mitzvahs. Those are the mitzvahs you should gravitate. The ones where nobody sees you except HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Okay? And the same thing, we should avoid those averos. Nobody sees me. I can get away with it. I can throw out a little thing, from the car. Sometimes the guy throws something. No. You didn't get away with it. You never get away with it. Because of the ayin roeh. There's an eye that sees everything. So these are important ideas all the time, and especially during the 3 weeks. Okay, stop here.